And Satya and I have become good friends over the past couple of years, and I was absolutely delighted that he accepted our invitation to come to the conference. He is an incredible person, an incredible visionary, an incredible leader of an incredible company. Also accompanying Satya is a reporter, a writer, who is probably one of my absolute favorite writers in the industry. She was at Fortune magazine. She's now at Wired. We're going to hear also from Jesse Hempel. So let's welcome a very big Dreamforce hand to Satya and Jesse.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Satya. It's so good to be here with you at Dreamforce. And the very fact that you and I are sitting here at Dreamforce says so much about the journey that Microsoft has been on over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, we never would have seen Microsoft here. Now, you've been here for more than a year in this role, and when you came on, you began talking about the soul of Microsoft. So I want to start there. Where is the soul of Microsoft today?
First of all, thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Mark, for inviting me to Salesforce. It's fantastic to be here and to sort of really absorb what's happening here, learn. That notion of finding the soul of a company is something that I constantly think about. In fact, probably in my early 30s, I was doing very well at Microsoft, and I had this guy whom I worked for. His name was Doug Burgum, and in fact, he was a founder of Great Plains, which became our business applications business in Dynamics. But the fascinating thing was, I was working for him, and one day he sort of looks at me and he says, "Hey, are you excited about work?" And he said something that stuck with me, which is, we all spend far too much time at work for it not to have a deeper meaning. Yeah. And in some sense, he was sort of invoking that notion of finding in work your own purpose and your own soul. And of course, individually it matters, and I've always thought that collectively, the company has a soul because it's made of people. And I asked that question, what does Microsoft exist? What is that sensibility that we have? And that's what led me to rediscover. In our 40 years, there's been this one constant thread of empowerment. And that's why when I talk about our mission, that is our soul. It is it's empowering every person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And that's what truly is the reason why I am at Microsoft, and I believe that's what we do at our best. And so that's, I think, where we are at. Exactly the place. The first lines of code that Bill wrote when he and Paul wrote the interpreter for BASIC to what we're doing with our cloud, it's the same.
So a lot of times when we're talking about soul, we're getting at the culture of the company. Now the culture has changed a lot in the year and a half that you've been its CEO. So what is it like today? Where do you see that change?
I mean, the culture of a place is what I think defines the pursuit of excellence. In other words, you can sort of look at a company and say, wow, they're doing great things, but you've got to really look underneath that and understand the culture, because that's what produces whatever it is that you achieve in terms of greatness. And to me, the concept that there is one culture and you want to change it by unfreezing it and freezing it back again, as a model itself, I don't think works. There have got to be enduring values, but when it comes to culture, what I aspire for us as a company is a learning, living culture. The thing that we have anchored on is this notion of growth mindset. It comes from psychology. There's enough theory there. And if you take that posture, that every day I'm going to be better than the previous day, as individuals and as a company, That's the culture I want at Microsoft, and that'll serve us. In fact, that's what's going to make us great listeners, learners, and doers.
And you know, Microsoft serves such a diverse group of consumers. Diversity is important to you, I know. Where have we seen progress on that front at Microsoft in the last year?
You said it right, which is diversity is an existential need for Microsoft. If you think about the diversity of our business, I mean, we operate in 192 countries. We serve people of all different economic strata, gender, race. And so we have to represent that. There is no way we're going to achieve anything if we don't have a diverse workforce. So it's a high priority. It's the thing that we talk about as a leadership team. We try to integrate it into everything we do. And culture that we foster has to truly grow that diversity and that mindset. And that's really where it's at.
So we've talked about culture. Let's talk about what Microsoft is trying to accomplish. How would you frame it?
You know, when I think about the mission that we have of empowerment and empowering both people and organizations, which I think is pretty unique, which is we are the only company that is obsessed about that both the constituents and the connection between the two, which is individuals and organizations. There are three big ambitions we have as a company. The first one is about productivity or reinvention of productivity in business process. And to me, economies make progress, societies make progress because of how productive they are. And so therefore, to me, contributing or doing our part in terms of digital technology that can drive individual success, organizational success, and economic success of societies is one big ambition of ours. Right. The second one is the building out of this intelligent cloud, because one of the real benefits of digital technology and where we're going is to harness the data asset and the ability to convert that into intelligence that powers all of the activity around us. That's the second ambition of ours. And lastly, it's to make computing more personal, more natural. That's what we're doing with our Windows 10. And over the years, you'll sort of talk about how computing is just going to be ambient and everywhere. And that's the three ambitions. They're all interlocking. They depend on each other, but that's really what we're up to.
Well, let's start with the first one, productivity. It's one of those words that can mean a lot of different things, but you've been fairly consistent since you came on about talking about how the one thing that I have that is finite is my time. And you've made me the promise that you're going to buy it back for me.
Yeah.
And so I want you to explain what you mean by productivity.
No, that's right. When we say productivity, what I mean by that, ultimately, it is for each one of us to get more out of every moment of our life. Because in all this abundance, we talk about computing everywhere, we talk about data everywhere, what's scarce is time. And so thinking about how can software, how can services come together, the tools come together to give me back my time so that I can enjoy both my work and life. And that's really what we want to do. And there are lots of things that we're trying to get done. Individual tools, group tools, and that's one of the key focuses for us.
And we're going to see a little bit about that in a few minutes. But I want to talk about how you make that all work together, too. I mean, you guys are doing a lot across platforms, right? So tell me a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it, you know, for me to be at Salesforce, that is, I think, key to what Microsoft's identity is. I mean, at the core, we're a platform company. And when we say you're a platform company, or successful platform companies do one thing and do that very well, which is harmonize the multiplicity of interests. You know, historically, I've always talked about how bringing end users, third-party developers, and IT together to make the organization successful is what platforms are, and that's where the magic of platforms come through. Yeah. And of course now there are more constituents. There is regulators, governments, more of the constituents. And platforms are all about bringing all of those constituents together. So to me, that's why with Salesforce, with Workday, with anyone else, to me, partnering broadly is very, very critical. That's something that I think we have always done. Even in the previous era, I mean, if you look at our history, SAP had a very successful business on our servers and our clients. Oracle actually had a very successful business, still has a very successful business on Windows. And we always welcome that. I mean, think about it. Google wouldn't exist if there wasn't Windows. Facebook wouldn't exist if there wasn't Windows. So to me, the notion that other people can build their success on our platforms is fundamental to us. And that's something that we will always keep coming back to.
Right. So I want to talk about mobility a second. Now, in July, you announced, Microsoft announced a broad rethinking of your mobile phone strategy. We saw you wrote off nearly all the value of the Nokia acquisition, and I want to know how you're thinking about devices.
I mean, one of the key things for me is I don't think about any one device as the be-all, end-all of computing. I think about mobility as being centered on the mobility of the human experience across all devices versus just the mobility of the device. I think that's fundamental because if you look out today, I mean, even if you look at the PC was very, very successful. Right. But then there was the smartphone. Now the question is, what's next after the smartphone? And there's going to be already the early signs of it. There are things that you wear on your wrist, things that you wear on your eyes, things that you put in your ear. There's going to be sensors which are capable of running general purpose compute.
Sure.
So computing is going to be everywhere. And the question is, are your experiences going to move as you move around? So mobility is more to do with your mobility as a user, an individual, as a person, versus the mobility of any single device.
So mobility is the way that I experience computing.
That's right.
But what does that mean for Microsoft and devices specifically?
In fact, it means that we should build our own operating system. Windows 10, for example, is built for mobility of experience, from Raspberry Pi to the holographic computer. It's one platform that you could use and experience all of the various applications. We have one application platform, one store, so the developers can in fact build applications that can run across that. And not just that, even our own endpoints, application endpoints, be it Skype, be it Outlook, are going to be on all platforms, in fact on iOS or Android. So to me, making sure that our applications and services and our operating systems truly support the mobility of the experience is the core to our strategy.